Yo, welcome to the Cosmic Paradox channel. Like, subscribe, and share. All right, now creating a business and creating a magical entity. Is there a difference? This is what we're going to talk about in this particular video today. And the thing that I've come to realize, what I hope that you all can see by the time we're done with this video, is that a lot of things that are metaphysical, occult by nature, considered to be magical from the ancient world, is still in use. It's just being used in a method that's acceptable for today's society. So these things are not gone. They have simply changed the way that they are allowed to be used and the limitations that have been placed on us in a manner that we can't even see it. But we're going to elaborate and, kind of get into it in the discussion of creating a business, creating a magical entity. It's really the same thing. You really follow very similar steps. It's pretty much the same process. Let's get into it and let's see. Okay, so, all right, now, when you start a business, right? When you start a business, there's a matter of, there's a matter of steps that you take to solidify a business, right? To actually create that entity, keyword entity, to be recognized in the eyes of the law, to conduct a business so it can perform transactions. It pretty much all begins with an idea. There's an idea. See, an idea is where the business begins. As with anything, it all starts with a thought first. It all starts in the mind. And after you get that idea, you have to refine it, research your market, research your product, your competition. You create a business plan. You design a logo. You get funding for your business. All of these things, all of these steps to creating a business, not only just a business, but a successful business, a business that's able to withstand the test of time and to accomplish what you set out for it to accomplish. Now, what may surprise you, as I stated, is just how similar this is to creating a magical entity, almost to the point where you can begin to see how maybe our magical powers have been redirected towards economic adventure and entrepreneurship. I mean, there's no greater way, right, to become self-aware of the things you have to change in order to succeed or accomplish your goals than entrepreneurship. See, the goals of spiritual enlightenment and entrepreneurship are very similar. It's just one is a little bit more superficial, because in terms of entrepreneurship, you're seeking out material gain. You're seeking actual practical results from your magic. That's really the key, right? So if you've been in any form of, entrepreneurship, whether this is network marketing, whether you're talking about sales, whether it's just being an artist, or, pretty much just starting a business from a hobby, far too well just how much personal development you have to do once you start on this journey. You realize how much mindset changes you have to make, which all boils down to mental transformation or alchemy, if we cut straight to the chase, right? All right, so magic, right? Magic can be practiced in many ways. Okay, changing the future is what magic is all about. That's all it's about. Think about it like this: the past is gone. It's unalterable. You can't do anything about the past. That's spilled milk. The present is here right now, right? You can't change anything about right now. However, the future is not. Okay, so therefore, it can be influenced to be changed. It is not your future is not predetermined. It's not predestined. So if a person is an addict, there's a good chance that that person has a higher increase of dying from an addiction in an overdose, or what have you. Are they destined to their future, or do they have the choice to change that outcome, or the chance to change that outcome? So that's all magic is, in a sense, changing or altering the outcome. So magic is the art of causing change internally and externally in accordance with the will. Just my camera a little bit. Okay, so in accordance with the will. Now, magic is the art of transformation into a sense of divine consciousness. Thus, it is meant to improve and assist the practitioner. It's both a science and an art. So as I stated, magic can be practiced in different ways. This is what we're looking at in this particular session right here, is one means of looking at magic in terms of creating an entity. Okay, so, and it's more considered to be chaos based. So the more you learn and study, you will figure out what works best for you in terms of creating change in your life. So this is the times that we are currently in, but whatever technique you use, they all require mental discipline, because it's all about the mind. The mind is all. That's the very first law, very first rule. The mind is all. Okay, so working on your mind is going to be constant work in doing this type of spiritual work. Okay, there's no instant magic or shortcut to enlightenment. So you have to be ready. You got to buckle up and get ready for the ride and prepare, because there's a lot that you have to do along the way. Okay, so a major law of the cosmos states that you get out in direct proportion to what you put in. The ratio is invariable. Also, note that time and money are not necessarily the criteria. Most of the time, we revert automatically to thinking about time and money in terms of the physical, because everything that we know is only what's acceptable in this paradigm of society. So it's okay for you to understand it, but only in terms of how it can be used in society. So time and money is what most people correlate into their mind, but it's not necessarily always the criteria. It's the quality of the input that matters. So that even goes into your work and your knowledge. You can't ever stop going. So what you put in is what you're going to get out. Now, if we return to that initial idea of input equals your output, you are dealing with the highest quality of input. This is what you want to do. You want to have a high quality of input. The resulting output of that is bound to be ideal and more keeping it in your true path in life. So you never treat your magical work as a hobby or a part-time interest that you fit in whenever, it's something that you want to fully invest in, because what you put in is what you get out. So the input equals output law is bound to give you proportional results that are bound to be, what they are. So what you put in and what you're going to get out of it. Okay, so you are the judge of that because you already know. Now, similarly, you can learn from others, right? And in some instances, work with other people, provided that you don't give up individuality and freedom in terms of your spiritual path and your spiritual work. Now, it's kind of a shortcut in learning when you pick up on or observe others and learn from others. And that's because you can learn from their mistakes and their missteps. So this is what it means in terms of a mastermind or mastermind events, right? It's groups of people. They are sharing a collective of conscious and resources. Listen to that Rick Ross Mastermind album, and that intro That's exactly what the guy is talking about when he's saying what a mastermind is.
Now, here are some interesting facts about the mastermind which give you an idea of how important it is and how necessary that you embrace this principle and make use of it in attaining success in your chosen occupation. First of all, it is the principle through which you may borrow and use the education, the experience, the influence, and perhaps the capital of other people in carrying out your own plans in life. It is the principle through which you can accomplish in 1 year more than you could accomplish without it in a lifetime if you depended entirely upon your own efforts for success. There is no such thing as something for nothing. Everything, including your personal success, has a price that must be paid.
I just up my stuff.
Now, as an individual, you have to remember there is no one else like you in existence. So it naturally follows that there is only one path for you to follow, your own. So this path leads to truth, not someone else's truth, but your own truth concerning your magical, real self and your relationship with the universe. No teacher can ever lead you to this truth. All that can ever be done is to show you the way. Or like Morpheus said, I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it. And this is all leading you to your truth. What is truth? Truth is the discovery of your real self, your inherent potential, and your relationship with the universe. By discovering the truth about yourself, you gain freedom and acquire power. This is a goal worth aiming for. This is the goal of magic. This is the power that you acquire when you walk the left-hand path. Okay, your path is that of a self-initiate. Okay, initiate simply means to begin or to start. So when you start seeking, regardless of the level, that's your initiation. Some have the means of being initiated through a system, and therefore they aren't following the way of chaos, which is fine. It's just a systemic approach, and nothing outside of those systems are usually seen as acceptable. The self-initiate deals with what works for them and moves accordingly. See, the moment you start to search for truth in any way, shape, or form, you have started on the path of initiation. So from then on, your initiation deepens in direct proportion to your efforts. So remember, it's input equals output. Now, there are many stages on the path. Each one is an initiation in itself as certain realizations are made. Now, again, these are personal realizations and are dictated by your own progress and level of advancement. These levels, incidentally, they have nothing whatsoever to do with grades and titles adopted by lodges and covens, okay? That's a systemic, that's still something being placed within a structure, okay? An initiate advances by becoming more aware. So there are, as you will no doubt discover, many misconceptions in magic, largely due to the carelessness and lack of thinking, really, honestly, because it's common sense. In magic, there's two main paths to follow. There's the practical magic and esoteric magic. The former, by its very name, implies getting physical results from magical workings. Okay, so practical magic is magic to get results, to make changes in your life and what's going on around you. Okay, the latter, esoteric magic, is concerned with the subject of magic in its own right. So a person may, by free choice, follow either or both of those paths. In fact, it's a poor magician who can't control or understand the physical end of life or try to understand its inner mysteries. Because that's just both of them. You got the physical aspect of it, and then you have the spiritual or the inner aspect of it. So when you hear left and right, the evils of materialism, or black and white magic, that's pretty much just a means of going outside of a structured system. You know what I'm saying? I will, just lay out the truth for you and let you judge those things for yourself. Okay, so, but it's a mistaken thing, to think that the material side is evil and to be resisted. That's what you get in the workings of the shadow work when you get into the dark side of the things. So, we often can have the token or the notion that the material side of life is evil and to be resisted. And you really have to practice balance. You have to have balance, because a lot comes with walking that particular path, because you're going to deprive yourself of everything you need physically to survive within the material world. So it's still an imbalance. You got to know how to walk the middle of the path, because it's one thing to acknowledge it and it's another thing to be consumed by it. So there's a difference. You live in a physical world, and unless you take control of the physical side of life, it's going to control you. So you can't compromise in that sense. Control or be controlled. That is law. So, and there's many reasons why the material came to be despised. Most of it came from Eastern philosophies, in which poverty is held up as a mark of spirituality and deprivation as a sure sign of success. And that's because of the attachment to material. So it was like, okay, well, if you just cut out the material, then you're good to go, because there's no attachment to the illusion. So, but like I said, balance is necessary. That's one path, and Christianity carried on that dubious tradition, so to speak, adding its own dimension to an already established belief from something that predates it, so to speak, so that's most of the thing in Christianity. A lot of times poverty, meekness, those type of things are seen as more spiritually superior versus physical wealth. So, but it's just a means of opposition, just to create the split between the self, to create the internal conflict, because you have to have material in a sense, because you live in a physical world. How you can't avoid it. It's the nature of the thing. So that carries its own programming of the mind to create limitations on the soul. That's just all it is at the end of the day. Now, to regard the material side of life as evil, of course, we know we not gonna do that. That's childish. So, what is what we're gonna talk about. The wrong aspect of it is the approach, because most people simply don't understand that they can have virtually anything that they desire simply because they are entitled to have these things. But it's only when the wrong attitudes, such as greed, jealousy, envy, and those negative ideas, that's the root of the desire, though. So that's the trouble in it. That's the issue in it. Once people realize that, when they ask, like, you don't have to take from others. You will always be able to receive what you need. But it's like, to be in that place, one doesn't have a sense of excess or being greedy. So it's like a thing that is received because it's just naturally what is needed. But the truth about physicality and your ability to bring abundance into your life, that's practical magic. When you get into even terms of prosperity thinking, you see this in entrepreneurship, you see this once you start to get into making your own business, changing your mindset. When you get into network marketing, you start to do these seminars. If you've done any of these programs, you know there's a process. You have to change your mind. You have to go into abundance thinking, prosperity thinking, and it's a form of magic. It's just being taught to you in a sense where it's acceptable in society, because it's just personal development. It's just empowering. It's just you aligning with the idea that you already that which you seek. So you just simply be in alignment with that. And like I say, it goes back to a mindset thing. So when you get into anything dealing with entrepreneurship, it already sets you on a path of self. It already sets you on a path of self to want to create a business. It's saying you want to create an entity of your own to feed and to nurture not only yourself but your family, hopefully others. That's not a herd thought to have. That is a rebellious thought. That is a thought of somebody seeking a form of enlightenment or self-awareness, even if it's just at the lowest level of acquiring or changing their life. Because at the end of the day, when you study these people who went from these transitions of these rags to riches type of lifestyle, you'll notice the mentality. When you read the Napoleon Hills, when you read the all of these type of self-help books, these well-known books, they are centered in occult thought. And it's because it's the same thing. It's practical magic. They just can't tell the public that it's practical magic because practical magic isn't acceptable. But we do magic all the time, even in religion. Even in religion, in the Christian church, when they eat eat of the bread and drink the blood, the wine, that is a ritual. That's practical magic. That's a sense of magic. Everything, all of the things that is done, for a Muslim to pray at sunrise, it's a sense of magic because it is a sense of invoking change. Anytime you invoking change internally, which leads to change externally, it's magic. We do it all the time. We just don't know because it's not acceptable for you to know that's what you are doing. But everything is everything. That's what we have to understand. Everything is everything. That's the law of polarity. It's just of different or varying degrees. So if you think, if you subscribe to the physical being bad, then that's a doctrine of defeatism. It's a doctrine of hope. It's a doctrine of lack. That's going to disrupt. It's going to disrupt your well-being. It's your root, your stability, your foundation, your material, your earth. Your feet have to be on the ground. So earth, the physical, plays a role. Okay? So we see the most obvious examples when we say right hand, left hand path is because it's to invoke division. Because you have to, it's levels to everything, but there's still trip ups to everything. And so anybody who uses magical paradigms to enhance their life is said to be on the left-hand path. Now, there's levels to that. That's why you have... So, the opposite, the right-hand path, is reserved for those who are supposed to just be strictly spiritual. But the levels to that, because you have, take for example, those who are considered religious to be your right hand, to see anything in terms of anything outside of any traditional system as to be left hand path. So that's why you get people who say, well, crystals is bad, burning sage and all of that is bad. And that's because those things will enhance your life. They will improve your life. They will empower you. So therefore, it is of a magical paradigm. So where we have to understand and where we have to be okay with knowing that we are going to all be at different levels. So people are going to unknowingly or ignorantly, should I say, mislabel you with terms of things due to your level of spiritual understanding, because to them it is outside of what is deemed okay to be dealt with, because they have a much smaller frame of reference. They have much less knowledge pertaining to what it is that they partake in. They are more dealing more with the dogma. They're more so just indoctrinated and not initiated. And so, you're going to have to let those people kind of be who and what they are, because it's just how things are. It's just the way it is. So people who are less enlightened, they gonna blanket it with right and left hand, black or white magic, good or bad. Calling a thing satanic that's not satanic because of a lack of understanding. People fear what they don't understand. And every day it remains to be proven, because look, this is typically what we are met with when we deal with people's ignorance. There's really no such thing as good and evil. Think about it carefully, because it happens to be true. What is good for one person is not necessarily good for another. The same is true of the word bad. In reality, it is all a question of choice. Remember that you can exercise unrestricted free choice in any area of your life. In doing this, however, you may affect others in ways that appear to be bad. This is the law of cause and effect. Sometimes we can't control, or we don't always know the consequences of what our actions, how they will affect other individuals. We don't always know that. And it's not always out of an ill intention. It's just sometimes how things happen to be. But in those cases and circumstances, you very well may be the bad person in the scenario. But you have to be okay with where you stand, because you can't control other people's perception and other people's truth. You can't control that. So, this is, where you get, this is mostly what these higher principles are teaching. This is what the law of polarity teaches. This is what it's showing you, because in understanding it, that's how you are able to transform something that's seen as bad into something good. Transform hate into love, because you recognize that they are one and the same. That's a powerful realization, a powerful level to take your mind to. So, but on an individual level, you must be the judge of your intentions, and you have to ensure that you do not knowingly harm other people in the process. Now, that's a different story. So as in any situation, you have to look at the facts that contribute to your decisions and then act on them. The facts could be wrong, and you may well be without knowledge sometimes, or have incorrect information, and you could affect someone adversely. That's a lesson for you. In either case, you could be judged wrong. It's unfortunate, but it happens sometimes. Sometimes we misjudge, But what we have to realize, that in those cases where we are wrong, so to speak, by gaining more insight or wisdom, however, you can learn to make fewer mistakes. It's a whole nother thing to deliberately persist in a course of action that you know is bad or detrimental or wrong or harmful. Not only are you violating the rights of others, but in that same way, you're damaging yourself in the process. So the best way to view good and evil is not by looking at it in a religious sense or those definitions of the words. It's better to be more realistic about it, being sensible about it, Don't worry about retribution, sin, and all of that. Those are false concepts. Instead, apply common sense and just sound reasoning, and you'll know where you stand. You have a conscience for a reason. That's the purpose of it. So when we're talking about the science of magic, okay, esoteric magic is concerned with inner truths as opposed to the more day-to-day issues covered by practical magic. Okay, so practical magic, you trying to increase your income or something like that. That's practical magic. Esoteric magic, it's more about you're working on being more, patient or something like that. You're dealing with something in a sense of in your inner world. So it's not higher or more noble. It's merely a different path. But you do understand that there's the sense of the middle road where you utilize both. You understand the need, the necessity for both, and how they complement each other, and how in utilizing both, you're able to elevate yourself faster. But a fair analogy might be to compare practical magic with flying a plane, right? Esoteric magic is like designing a plane. So both are necessary, both are equally important. So it's with the two main branches of this art. In practical magic, you're concerned with getting the results, while in esoteric magic, you desire to know how. So magic is a valid art, not, it's more of an art than it is in terms of a science. So we should treat it as such, because it's been degenerated into superstitions and things of that nature. So we just gonna look at it in terms of it being an art of transformation. Now, technically, there's no such thing as God in the way we've been told. There's only energy, right? This energy is not random or chaotic. It's ordered and conforms to precise laws. So there has to be an intelligence behind that energy. That, this intelligence can be, in a sense of what that, all in all, that energy or what people portray to as God is. Now, the opposite end of that spectrum is you. So magic is about truth, not facts that you seek, and you will rapidly learn that the apparent facts are not always true. All right? It's about truth, not facts. Truth has to do with self-awareness. All right? So the only equation that successfully explains your true relationship to life energy is you equals your belief paradigms. That's your energy. So you are a created being who uses life energy and directs it according to your will, whatever that may be. And that has to do with your beliefs. There are no restrictions or limitations other than those that are believed. The word belief is a major factor when it comes to magic. Everything that exists in your life is a direct result of your beliefs. Nothing happens by chance, nor are events controlled by fate or karma. It's all there because you willed it to be, either knowingly or unknowingly. That is the ultimate realization when it comes to magic, when it comes to dealing in the higher powers of self. Anything that is accepted or believed affects the subconscious mind. And that's that part of you which has the ability to direct energy and therefore achieve physical results. So it knows no limits, nor does it recognize restrictions and limitations. in the normal sense. So in short, if you give it an instruction, which is a belief, and it will carry this belief all the way out. It naturally flows. If your beliefs are wrong or, self-limiting, you are bound to get the equivalent in a physical, because your input equals your output. So your problems aren't due to external causes. They are entirely internal. It is impossible to overestimate the power of the subconscious mind. Not only will it carry out every command that you give it, but it will also answer all your questions that you ask. It's all in how you are able to recognize the answer. So everything that comes in your life, you conjured it up. When you meet people in your life at specific certain periods of time, you conjured it up. It's subconscious. So this is higher level knowledge. Because when one understands these things, one is able to alter the world around them. So this is, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about magic. Now, access to the knowledge and the power of the subconscious mind comes through three means. That's the mind, emotions, and imagination. That's what the trident represents that you see. That's the symbol for Neptune in astrology, right? This is how to understand the will. To activate the subconscious, there first has to be an intention. Something must be willed. This is then directed into subconscious levels through either or all of these three access points. This is the power of three. This is where three comes in. Three has to do with the mind, the emotions, and imagination. Look at the charm ones. The mind, the emotions, and the imagination. Look at all three of the sisters and what their abilities were. The power of them uniting. This is symbolic as to what I say when you see the trident. Now, mind you, the trident having to do with Neptune, you're talking about ruler over the oceans. Ocean symbolic to the subconscious mind. So, when it comes to magic, it's all about you. The law of causation or cause and effect is that anything that you cause to happen must have an effect. So when you dabble in magic or the subconscious mind or the abyss, you're told to be careful because you may activate a response that is hard to control. See, you have to take responsibility for your actions and practice magic responsibly. So that's what that means. So when you want to will something, when you have intention and you are directing changes, you are responsible for who that affects. There has to be an effect. So you take responsibility for your actions and practice responsibly. This is why you have to do the shadow work. And that's why it's in your best interest to root out all belief patterns that aren't limiting you, because these cause problems deep within your subconscious mind. This is why you must know thyself. Know all parts of yourself, even the bad parts. Most take this into a historical context, and although it's vital in your journey to unlearn in terms of history when they say know thyself, but it's also, and most importantly, an inner reference. It's referring to the inner self. It's referring to when you know thyself, you know the depths of the universe. And all things aren't good things. We see that in nature. And what you hide, you inevitably feed to be a monster in the dark. It is the possibilities of your undoing. So you must do your shadow work. Your problems come from you. You are the common denominator. The problems you have had to face in life, they are entirely due to cause and effect. You are the cause, and therefore you must experience the effect, and vice versa. This is the path of the rebel. This is the one who chooses the path of self, because you take on the responsibility. You the captain of your ship. Life is truly what you make it. Now, everybody has their own mental blocks and traumas that are specifically molded to you and your path and your experiences. And it's these blocks or habits that manifest as phobias, beliefs, compulsions, impulses, things that you've accepted without thinking. So once you deal with these blocks, these limiting beliefs, and replace them with truth, your truth, which is who you truly are, what you truly are, that's when you can be effective. Magically. Ideally, these mental blocks were oftentimes conceived of as demons. This is where you get the whole concept of demons from. This is where this began in terms of the split in the creation of your higher and your lower, your light and your dark, or your black and your white, your good and your evil. This was in terms of that. Now, there's two sides to every story. There's two sides to everything. So if you wish to use the visual, the imagery of what you've been taught, at least deprogram it and flip it into something that can be more empowering. You can use that as a reference, but keep in mind what they really are, so you can prevent yourself from making serious error. The characteristics of each and the taboos of them are merely labels that describe the dual aspect of a single universal intelligence. They are the same. Most of the church rituals are to subdue your natural instinct. The lower self, the undesirable blocks, is made to prostrate itself to the higher true self. As long as you bear in mind that this is all a metaphor for self, all is well and good. It's fine to refer to it in that way, angels and demons, but just as long as you know what that truly is metaphorically speaking on within self. It's not something external in this sense and what we're talking about. This is something that is internal. You have to know that you have the power. You just have to rediscover it. There will be different mental blocks that you're going to encounter on your journey, and you're going to have to deal with them. So when something doesn't work, when your magic is lacking, there's a reason for that. You're having a block. That's why you have been given religion in the manner that you have been given it. It's so that you aren't completely empowered to govern yourself. And honestly, it's not in the cards for everybody to govern themselves. But religion keeps you looking outward, at least in terms of how it's generally taught. Now, there's answers in the text when one has been taught how to see. But you have to remove the programming that creates these limiting beliefs so that you can align with your will for manifesting what it is that you're manifesting. The greatest enemy will hide in the last place you would ever look. The demonic element of the human brain or the lower self knows and uses our weaknesses to anticipate every challenge to its dominance. So determination alone isn't enough. This is the devil as you've been taught. See, the devil is the self, it's the brain. the home of the ego, which are thoughts that identify with the human fears of the self, the shame, the worthlessness that we have to overcome. So knowing thyself is the journey. That is the path. It's not acquiring information. It's applying it to the self, the inner self. It's an inner journey. So on this path, you must master self. That involves a high level of self-discipline and self-mastery. And this also includes the channels in which that you are linked to the rest of humanity as well. You can only have control over your own personal self. Negativity, superstition, fear, imbalance, all those things have to be dealt with for the outer personality and the inner reality. So what is erased from within cannot attract from without. Those who are afraid will attract fear. Those who are hateful will attract hate. That's typically how it goes. So you have to resolve that internally, or it's going to continue to confront you until you allow it to come out of your shadows and look your true self in the face. But that's not always easy for people to be able to do. It's much, much easier to deal with the illusion. That's what the devil is. That's what all that truly is metaphysically. That's what it's, because it's referring to self. So your enemy is your own brain, your own mind. Remember that in the Matrix, he told him if what's real is what you can see, taste, touch, and then it's simply electrical impulses in your brain.
This isn't real.
What is real? How do you define real? If you're talking about what you can feel, what you can smell, what you can taste and see, then real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
It's simply your nervous system. Everybody has the reptilian part of the brain, and it's the oldest layer of the brain. It's composed of the brainstem, your medulla, the pons, the cerebellum, the structures that dominate the brains of snakes and lizards, the reptiles. That's why it's called the reptilian brain. So it's sometimes referred to as the primal brain, because we're talking about primitive instincts, This is what controls our innate and automatic self-preserving behavioral patterns, which ensure our survival of our species. So it's your autonomic nervous system also as well. So it's the things that the primal brain is in charge of feeding, fighting, fleeing, and fucking, so to speak, or reproduction. This is where aggression, dominance, it's the lower brain, the primal brain. So the oldest brain relating to old, darkness before light. This is symbolic reference to the self, an explanation somewhat just from a symbolic language. Now, however much we advance in society, there is always the primordial instincts that still dictate the destiny of individuals and nations. They are the demons that Solomon is said to have imprisoned with magical seals. You see, magical systems seek to constrain demonic forces in service of the true will. The process involves separating the spiritual goal from the human gross. Anger, envy, greed, lust, fear, those are the emotions that control mankind. So it's on you to consciously control your thoughts, words, and emotions. This is how you ride the goat. The Masonic symbolism of riding the goat. When Jesus rode into Bethlehem on a donkey, symbolic to controlling the animal nature, the lower nature, not acting from anger or for greed or through lust or from fear. So that's operating from a higher frequency. The heavens, the higher brain. So it's on you to consciously control that. It's work. This is your most important work. This is your this is your true daily work. But in time you get better at it. So you have to start paying attention to your thought patterns. How you think in your everyday life. Look at the way in which you deal with life. More specifically, your problems. Do you worry a lot? Do you have anxiety? Are you negative or positive? As you think, so you are. The type of thinking that you generally apply towards life will always dictate what happens next. So in other words, negative experiences arise when your dominant thoughts have a negative bias. The lesson is simply one of changing your thinking from negative to positive. This needs practice, but it is well worth the effort. But with further understanding of the spiritual law, the law of polarity, you know that a bad experience is still a good experience. It's all in what you are able to take from it. Can you transmute that experience? Can you see it as just an experience? You have to change your mind to change your life. That's mental alchemy. So as you observe and become more aware, you'll notice that this is a habit that has become a part of your thought pattern. And by adopting a new and better habit, you can be rid of it. So you begin to replace the thought. So every time you have the thought, I'm stressed, you say, no, I'm going to throw that out. I am happy. I am happy. Or I am filled with positive energy. I am filled with positive energy. It's going to be some things that's going to come from a deeper level that won't manifest until you start the progress. It's going to be so it's not going to just be all up and up. It's going to be like this. It's going to be up and down because some things are going to come to surface that you didn't even know was there as you start the progress towards certain things, because they have to come into the light now, because you have to keep going. You have to keep transforming. You have to keep transmuting if you're going to get to where you're going. There may be more things along the way that you have to overcome. If you look at movies, shows around magic, there's always a mental and an emotional connection that has to be tamed and worked through. These are rooted in the beliefs about yourself and your world that instruct the subconscious mind to set up situations that may be contrary to your conscious intent. This is how when you start to say you want to change this and this and this, and it's saying like something bad just had to happen to test it, and you feel like this is because these things are heavily rooted. The force working against you, it feels like an outside force, but it's really you. It's easy to say it's karma, it's fate, or it's God, but that's the difference between people that's on the path of self-mastery, because you know it's up to you. You could be trying to manifest some successful passive income, but you may have a very inner limiting belief that you have to work hard to earn money. But you may not recognize that it's there. These are just contradicting self-limiting beliefs that you have adapted, that you never question, that you have to bring out and release them now. So subconsciously or figuratively, these are the demons of our stories, the dragons that we must slay. That is to proceed towards our transformation. That's to get the girl. That's how the prince got to slay the dragon to get to the princess. Or, whatever the ultimate end goal, end prize is. Your greatest power will always come from you. You have to look at the man in the mirror, as Michael Jackson said. It's about you. Now, you have to look at your beliefs, question them to see if they are valid and where they stem from. Your habits will also afford a value. They will tell you clues to these inner problems that you have to resolve within yourself, or these inner conflicts that you may have. That's what the 12 Steps program is built on. It's a spiritual system of guidance to mastering addiction. So this foundation of discipline is beneficial for people with the intention and will to improve and get better by removing a bad habit or addiction. It's a plan of approach or a plan of thinking to remove or to control those urges. And it's not to say, there's something wrong. We understand that addiction, they'll tell you addiction is an illness. It's a mental illness, right? They'll tell you that. So you're dealing with urges, impulses. So that, the 12 Steps program and other programs of assistance are built to help control those urges. It's a plan of approach and how to deal with that about yourself, because you are aware. The first step is always, I'm an addict, or I'm an alcoholic, or whatever it is. That's always the first step, is to admit it, right? It's the first thing you got to do. So when you think about magic, it's about first having an intention that the subconscious mind can accept as an instruction. Input equals output. So, it's all about how well and how in depth you strive to know yourself. That's your input. When you know thyself, ye shall know the depths of the universe. So, how much do you want to know? That's really the question. How much do you want to know? And that's the true power in self-love. A lot of people will say self-love in the answer when people will say, they're looking for love in relationship, and it's like, oh, well, you have to love yourself first. And that's true. And that's always the key. Love is always the key, but it's because you're going to need that to accept yourself. It's about accepting yourself, though. It's about accepting who and what you really are. The dark parts of yourself you don't want nobody to see, that you don't want anybody to know exist. The shame, the worthlessness. Can you move past all that and stop identifying with that part of yourself that's bringing you down? So now that we done did all that, we covered our bases in terms of talking about magic. Let's bring it all together, right? And bring it all in terms of how creating a magical entity, creating a business, how it's the same thing. Now, a business is defined as an organization or enterprising entity engaged in commercial, industrial, or professional activities. Businesses can be for profit entities or non-profit organizations, right? Business types range from limited liability companies to sole proprietorships, corporations, and partnerships. So in the definition is the word entity, letting you know that it's already established as an entity by its definition. But we're going to put some metaphysical context to exactly how powerful it is. The basic definition of entity is existence, being. So when you create a business, you create a being. You create a being. That is a magical act because it stems from a thought. It stems from your own imagination, your own will to bring this into fruition. You created a being. You go through the process, spend money, do all these things to establish a legitimate being. That's a magical act if you recognize it as one. And if you do recognize it as one, or if you can recognize it as one, then you can take it to a whole nother level in terms of how you can establish a successful and working business over time, right? So a magical entity, what's a magical entity? One of the first things we got to do before we get further into that, we got to define what an entity is. So for the purpose of what we talking about, the term entity is going to be defined as, in a magical sense, a vital principle held to give life to an immaterial essence which has been created to have a self-contained and distinct existence with a conceptual reality by the deliberate effort of personifying segregated thoughts and emotions. Now that was a lot. So I'm going to say it again. A vital principle held to give life to an immaterial essence which has been created to have a self-contained and distinct existence with a conceptual reality by the deliberate effort of personifying segregated thoughts and emotions. In other words, you have to create a magical being, or a being, from the thoughts and emotions of your conscious mind, and by your direction, this being will act to manifest your desires. An entity combines the essence of the desired result with that of the person that created the entity. First, you should be able to see the correlation, because you create a business or a business entity from your own thoughts and ideas and emotions of your conscious mind to make you money amongst other goals of your business. So even when you think about people who create a charity organization in the name of a loved one that they lost, they are creating an entity in the name of that person and establishing, right? Establishing an entity in the name of what it is. This is an aspect of entities in terms of like creating from thought forms that have been selected to bring forth desired results. So we're talking about creating in terms of from thought form. There's different levels of magic. So we're talking about creating from thought form. Now, a thought form is a symbol that represents a concept or thought for the person. A thought form can be visualized by anyone and can represent anything. It is entirely in the realm of concept until the person makes the thought form manifest into reality. Through the deliberate actions and intentions of the segregation and personification, which is separating the essential idea away from everyday concerns and giving it a personality, special characteristics, association, and symbols, the thought forms will take on a conceptual form that will allow them to maximize the energy that they have received through your actions and intentions. By maximizing this energy, you allow for very powerful actions to occur through creative processes. When you create a logo to represent your business, I want you to think about popular brands and the logos or the brand symbols that represent them. That's the thought form in a symbolic brought into the physical. All things that are created with the mind have the ability to manifest outside of the mind in some form or shape. The mind is a microcosm of the universe. So, the all is mental. That which affects the mind has the ability to affect the universe. This is how you have the power to impact on high. You can bring your power and impact the universe. So in what you create has the ability to affect the universe, i.e. creating a business entity in the world or in society to function in the community, in your neighborhood, to function wherever it functions at, to provide whatever service or whatever product, enacting change, bringing forth something to the world. See, it's levels to everything. People have created and worked with different types of entities far beyond recorded history. Many gods and goddesses came into being as thought forms personified. As more people adopted these understandings of the events as actions of things greater than themselves, the thought forms gained momentum and energy from the people that understood them. That's how they created Jesus. It's a thought form. It came out of actions of things greater than themselves because it had greater meaning. Over time, a single thought transformed from one person's way of understanding the world to what is now considered some of the most powerful gods, goddesses, demons, and spirits that we even know of. Even in terms of characters in your favorite stories, these are entities. Because they have all of the concepts, all of the components needed to be an entity. One of the main things needed is a story, a point of origin, an origin story. That's a point of origin. That's how it came into making. That's how something becomes greater than it is. So by taking specific thoughts and emotions and identifying them with things like names, symbolic attributes, and etc., that's how we work with it in a conscious manner. That's how we make it physical. That's how we make it real. So when you create a character in your mind, you come up with these attributes, when they were born, what they're like, what makes them who they are. Then you create an image for that character. So that's the makings of an entity. Sounds elementary, but that's the simplistic version of it. Therefore, it's very important that we wisely choose our thoughts in the way that we understand them. So sometimes we create entities out of our thought patterns. We create demons, we create spirits, guardians out of our own thought patterns, out of our own ways of thinking. And they feed off of our own cells, of our own source. And it becomes diabetes in our body. It becomes anxiety. It becomes, lack of being able to trust, inability to communicate. If we don't understand our thoughts and emotions and we try to use them for our benefit, the results sometimes, more often than not, they prove to be counterproductive. So you can't do magic using your thoughts and emotions when you haven't gotten to the root of them. So it can be counterproductive. That's playing with things that you don't understand. That's what that means. Because you could create more of an imbalance. This is how people harm themselves, because they don't know thyself. Now, don't misunderstand me. This isn't a concept or something that average people can understand because they haven't studied magic. But when you studied it long enough, you come to the understanding that you come to the understanding what is thought of as self and not self is simply an illusion of being separated. Everything that we experience, perceive, or understand in any way has been created within our own minds. The world that we live in is only that of ourselves. So only we have the ability to change the things in our world. And our mind gives us the ability to do that, because it is your mind that creates your world. If you change how you perceive it, you will change how you see your world. Now, everything in the world as we know it has been constructed by the limitations of our own mind at the time that we experienced it. So, we build up on our thought constructions for what we perceive to be real or the truth. Once you understand how to change your perceptions, there's nothing in this world that your mind cannot change. You change your mind to change your life. So we know that we know what we know until we have an experience that shows us something different. So we must accept our experiences and understand that we are only limited by our experiences. So what you think you know about, let's say, entities is only limited by your experiences. As am I. I'm only limited by what it is that I know. I may know a little more, but I'm still only limited by my experiences. The more we learn about a subject, the more that we come into our realm of understanding. And then coming into your realm of understanding brings it into your realm of experience, because you will begin to experience in terms of your understanding. Right? Now, many people dream about being entrepreneurs, right? They might begin by doing something they love and then they start getting paid for it. It's easy to enjoy your success and overlook the need to take your business to the next level. So, but when you do decide to do that, and when you want to organize your business into an official entity, you give it legitimacy. So people start to look at you different when your business is legitimate. You know what I'm saying? You're a real business person. You have a real business. And people treat you differently and treat the business differently as well. So what sort of entity should you become? You have to understand the options that are available to you when you create your business, right? So people use the term incorporation, whether, you're going to create a corporation, you're going to create a limited liability company, you're going to create a C Corp, a nonprofit entity, a partnership, etc. When you legitimize your work or your craft or your talent into a legitimate business, it becomes its own entity, its own separate thing to be recognized. Okay? Now, I repeatedly stated that we live in an upside down world. So all things spiritual have been flipped and reversed. So there's nothing wrong with creating an entity. People do it all the time. Especially when they create a business, or when they, write a story, create heroes, villains, things of that nature. But you would never think that has anything to do with magic. But when you truly understand the mind and how things actually work in the hidden realm of things, then you know that it does, But it's because of our lack of understanding of magic and things like that, which is why we discussed that so much earlier. So, it's okay for you to start a business to help you in life, but you can't create a magical entity to assist you on your journey. But if you know, then it's the same thing. It's just a different language and levels of understanding. So when you understand and you put them together and you utilize the power of magic in your life, then you're just going to take things to a whole nother level. That's true empowerment. That's true mastery. That's how you truly move like a sovereign out here, because you know how to reign over self. You know how to govern yourself because you've mastered self. You create entities, and you can accordingly determine what these entities will do for you. You don't use the perception of belief with entities, but instead you use the perception of attributes with your entity. So you think about just the same way how your business can operate as an entity. See, once you create a business, now you're able to maneuver a certain way in society that you can gain material success or acquire more material gain, because you get certain tax breaks now that you have a business. You know what I'm saying? You get certain advantages to things that you don't get an advantage to as an individual, but you do as a business. You can get certain business loans. Like you can cap out at a personal loan at a certain level, but you could take that to a whole nother level when you're talking about business loan. So it's the attributes that you attributing or that you're dealing with. It's not about beliefs per se. Okay, belief is has to do with magic in itself, but when creating your entity, this is what you perceive, this is what you're basing it on, your perception of attributes. So it's the same sense, just like when you do a business, how you want to maneuver with your business. So think about your business like a magical entity. Think about it in that way. To put it simply, you choose to perceive that entity has specific talents about it and how it's going to help you in your operations. So if you know that there's certain things that you talented and able to do, and you need to be able to maneuver to be able to do it a certain way that's going to help you and benefit you, that's what you should be doing, or in terms of how you structure your business or how you structure your organization, whatever it is that you create. So those talents are the attributes that you placed on that entity. Now, a thing to understand about entities is that they have different levels of intelligence. So the intelligence depends on the type of entity. So it's different things you can do depending on what your business is, what type of business you have. Certain things it's able to do, certain levels of resources, just like the type of, like I said, in terms of tax purposes and what's going to best benefit you. So one way of understanding entities is that they are formed from the collective unconscious. So when we specifically identify and give a certain type of energy human attributes, we are separating the energy from the collective unconscious and creating it as a being. So because you personifying it, right, that's what's separating it, making it an entity. That's what's giving it the power. That's how you contain the power. That's how you put it in the shape. It's like putting it in the mold of something. So we're separating the energy from the collective unconscious and creating that being. So how you do that when you create a business, you creating your mission statement for your business. Your business have a set of instructions that is met with the public and how it engages. You have a set of operations for how your business operates, with the public. That in its goal, along with its goal and how it's contributing to the community. All of this is how, in terms of your being that you created, in terms of your entity. So, creating a magical entity can be as easy or as hard as you want it to be. So even with the least amount of preparation, you can produce a results-focused entity. Now, the more you put into it, the better your chances are of getting results. Input equal output, right? Now, because of the flexibility inherent in their creation, magical entities can be custom designed to be a very specific goal. So with some magical workings, you might be limited to the results that's produced. With an entity created specifically for your goal, you have better likelihood of the goal manifesting in the manner that you wish. So like, let's say you're trying to get a promotion, right? So creating an entity and to help you or to assist you in the energy of gaining a promotion, that will dissolve once you get that promotion. Now, because most people are seeking practical magic or getting results with their magic, whether that's based off intention or ritualistic practices, you gotta listen to the verbiage. Okay, so like magical entities can be custom designed to a specific goal. So if I create a business that's a charitable organization that assists battered women, then my entity is created and custom designed to assist battered women in whatever way that I choose to operate my business or carry out my business operation, right? So the entity will go off and complete the task that has been assigned to it, meaning everything that I do that have put in place to assist those people is what my business is set in place for to do. So the more energy that I direct towards it, depending on the work at hand, the better the results gonna be. The more you put into your business, your organization, the more you're gonna get out of it. The more money you put into it, the more you're gonna get out of it. So that's why I say time and money isn't always the equivalent. Remember when I said that in the beginning in terms of magic? That's because most of what we know as magic is geared to the physical. So most of the time what we have to put into our business is time or money. So that's why most of the time that's the sacrifice. It be time or money. So think about, that's why businesses are magical entities also as well. So depending on how much you can put into that also is how much you're going to get out of your business. So how much money can you put into your business? So that's going to determine, because it takes money to make money. So the more money you have, the more money you have to make from that money, because money makes money off of money. If you know how money works, right? Now, don't mistake me. You can create entities for many different uses. It does not have to be for monetary purposes. But I'm just showing you how all of these processes in creating a business is the exact same thing as creating a magical entity. And the reason why I'm showing you that is because everything is everything. And what we think to be all as bad and taboo is really just taught to you to limit your thinking into how well or how empowering you really could be, because you really could do way more if you knew more, but you don't, because if you know better, you do better. But we're purposely restricted or indoctrinated in this dogma to think this way for a reason, right? So you can create entities for anything. You can even do it to elevate into higher spiritual levels of understanding, to reach higher levels, along your spiritual path. You see, magic, or the magician, is also the pioneer. Is also, the adventurer. It's also, the one paving the way. There's a very similar energy at work between the entrepreneur and the one on the path of self, right? So when one takes the path of entrepreneurship, you have to know thyself. And if you don't, you're going to know, or you're going to learn some things about yourself when you get in business for yourself. Because you only feeding you, and that business is built off of the business of you and who and what your energy is. So you're going to get very well acquainted with who and what you really are. Or at least you going to learn what you're not. So because you become the sole foundation for your well-being and your income and everything that you can make for yourself, when you get on that path, it's the same path. It's the same thing when you get initiated. You're just getting initiated through entrepreneurship. Some people get initiated through brotherhood, through gang, through, through fraternity. Some people through motherhood, parenthood, through sisterhood. It's different means of being initiated into a way of thinking that's going to bring you into a path of having to know things that you have suppressed knowing about yourself. So entrepreneurship is a form of initiation. So it's you going into the abyss. It's an opportunity to advance your divine self by becoming more self-aware and enlightened. You see, you can create an entity that has the task to look after your personal assets, or they can be astral messengers and collect information, get data. They can be governors of happiness to provide us with feelings of happiness when we need it. An entity can be created to help you learn a specific skill, or it could be a teacher entity. These teacher entities are created with all of the knowledge of a particular skill or area of interest. Because remember, they are created from the collective unconscious. So you can have an entity helping you get sales, protect your home, your children. You are only limited by your imagination. So for some people, they may find it easier to use entities to bring on results, because when working with entities, the practitioner is able to relate to a being doing the working. So if you think about protection, you've seen many different forms of something that you can envision protecting you. That's just like even with religion. In terms of religion, your energy, your ability to connect with what you identify as a protector or a provider, these things. So this is how your energy works. This is why people say you already had the spirit before you ever went into the church. You already had the Holy Ghost. You already had it in you, because you already have that energy, that connection to source. So and sometimes some people aren't religious. Some people identify through character. Some people might connect to a childhood character. They might be easier to connect to a Venom or somebody like that, to see them, to help them to build on their emotion. Maybe they have an emotional attachment to something of that nature that allows them to build or create or bring out that energy through that. So people with heavy creative energy, you already doing this. You creating entities all the time, but what are they feeding off of? And what are the results of what they are breeding? What are the results of them? That's the purpose of cleanses. That's what you're supposed to cleanse for. It's so that when you cleanse, you release or you remove those entities that were created from your lack of knowing, and are your having to assist, and are assisting in your undoing. That's your karma, because that's your created entity that you created from your own energy, from your own thought form. So for some, the simple knowledge that they are in control of an entity that they created can be all that's needed to spark their magical workings. Now, other people like knowing that they can be creative as they wish to be. It's just different forms of magical workings that can be exciting based on the results that's produced. So now, before you work with anything, it's important that you learn to work with and balance your own energy. You have to have some degree of control over your own energy. And if you don't, then working with an entity or even trying to create one is going to be very hard. So here's the base foundation where you need to begin. All right. So first thing first, meditation. I cannot stress how much meditation is the sole foundation for any type of magical work. And meditation is a tool that will allow you to gain control of your thoughts and actions. It's important to be clear in your mind what exactly it is that you want for your magical working. So meditation gonna help you learn how to focus your mind. It's gonna help you to define your goals and desires. It will also allow you to see the situation from different angles. This will help you reveal hidden situations that may lend themselves to helping achieve your goals. Okay, so if you don't have a regular meditation routine, it's recommended that you start one as soon as possible. You might even want to do some qigong or some tai chi. Start exercising regularly. You'll notice that if you've ever been in any type of financial freedom or wealth building webinars, seminars, or groups, inner circles, they always discuss mindset, and they talk about exercising regularly and also eating healthy food, because this is all to attune or align or harmonize your energy. Chakra work, Reiki, all of these things are included. All of these things is energy work. Energy work is personal development. Energy work is self-healing. Energy work is also congruent with personal development, self-development, personal growth, all of those guru type of things. Hey, it just came from the occult. That's all it is. Remember, input equal output. So you get what you put out. You get what you give. So regular exercise is important for your overall health, and it's going to help to reduce stress. It'll help to alleviate depression, and it'll improve your quality of sleep. For some people, just moving around, exercising will help your energy circulate. It can just help your blood move better. And in turns, that's your life force energy. Your blood represents your vital life force energy. And when you sweat, it helps to clean away toxins in your body. So this helps your energy flow throughout your body better. This is why you see the Native American traditions where they be in the hot tents when it's all the sweat and the sauna, and almost to the point where it's like you'll pass out. That's the point of it, is to get the toxins out of your body and to cleanse. Toxins are connected to entities, negative entities that could be feeding off of your life force because they created from your thought forms. So if you always on a I'm stressed, you have an entity around you that's feeding off your stress. So having a good diet or eating well affects your energy levels. So you want to have the proper fuel. It's all a mindset thing. You want to align mind, body, spirit. Okay, it's self-care and choosing to put yourself first. So you look into herbs, supplements, your vitamin D, magnesium. You want to try to eat more balanced in your food intake and with moderate portions. You don't want to overindulge. So, when it comes to food, I will say you want to eat as organic as possible, as little processed food as possible. Try and be as organic, man. Try and eat as much fruits and vegetables, green leafy vegetables. Add shakes and smoothies if you're not a fan of vegetables that much. If you don't particularly like, those more healthier vegetables, look into some shakes and whatnot. Take some classes. Look at some online recipes to increase, the things that you're accustomed to eating. If you don't know, just become more conscious of what you're putting into your body and drink more water. The more magical and spiritual work that you do, the more water it requires. Trust me, dehydration is serious in terms of health concern for most people, especially in America. So, they say if you're thirsty, then you're already dehydrated. So you want to, cut out caffeine, sodas, the sugar, the artificial flavors, high fructose corn syrup, all of that. You want to get as much of that out your diet as possible. Changing these habits will be very, very difficult, but you help yourself by replacing them, by being more healthy, by choosing the self-love route. The self-discipline is the highest form of self-love because you reward yourself with with all the things, the good things that come with, the longevity of life, the good health. You don't want to have staggering health, but that's why love is the answer to all. It's love of the self in the highest form of self-discipline. You have to deprive yourself of what you want in order to get what you need. And get plenty of rest. Sleep is good for you. You discharge at night and you allow your body to recharge your physical vessel. So you don't want to eat late, so your body can rest properly. If you have trouble sleeping, try taking a hot bath before sleeping. That might help. In terms of, let's see what else. You could also look into creative visualization, in terms of building your mental mind, getting your mental more under control, being more magical with your mind. And always remember that any information or methods or energy that you work with, you are respectful for those things, for they are extensions of you and reflective of you. So again, always do the self work. And always know that whatever you do, there are consequences for your actions. So whatever you do, be prepared for that to come back to you. It's not in terms of karma. Karma is action. It's understanding cause and effect rather than a system of punishment or reward. So in this understanding, the punishment or reward comes from the person's ability to learn a lesson. So it's to teach people the effect that their actions have. It's it's of great importance to understand what type of effects your actions will have on the world around you. If you're careless, then you may find that your actions can have an unexpected, or even ill effects on those that you love and care about. On the other hand, you may receive great fortune by what seems to be luck. So that's just in life, if a person is not being responsible watching a baby or something, and let's say in not being responsible, that child harms themselves, that's the cost of a loved one being harmed due to that person's choice. It's just an example, you know what I'm saying? So there's just always something that you always have to keep in mind. That's just the law. That's law of cause and effect. That's law of causation. So that's always keeping it in mind because of balance. What goes around comes around, you know. Now you can create an entity to do whatever you want. All right. So that's even if a person is choosing to do harm. So, but even if you don't know who is going to reap the harm, any harm that you send out, you're sending that same harm back to yourself. Or it ends up hitting somebody that you love. That's always the cost of it. So there's what you always have to know. So be aware of how the planning and creation of anything that you create affect the people around you. So that's just like in businesses and corporations when they get to a certain, they have a certain level of integrity to uphold to their customers in terms of their product. And if they don't adhere to that and there's something harmful within their product, there's consequences for that. You know what I'm saying? There's harm that can come to their loved ones. They may not get caught for it, but maybe their children may have to deal with the consequences of it, may have to reap the, consequences of that. So you always want to know that. And like I say, even in terms of look, they can just still be how it looks in the same sense. So think about a sun, right? Think about the sun. Everybody is a sun. Everybody has a sun, right? But some people shine, some shine bigger and brighter, meaning they may have a position of power or power to make decisions that affect a mass amount of people. That's cause and effect. There's levels, there's downsides to power and authority and success, should I say. These are things that all translate to the same thing in an energetic sense. When we bring it down to the physical, it's always about the lesson, though. So that makes one more open for scrutiny of the public eye. This is where character is shown and represented. This is, this is known. So as you grow more in your stature, more in your character, as your status and as your orbit grows, you affect more and more people. So as you go up the ranking, as you gain more authority, this is just like looking at the midhaven, the 10th house. This is why this is the public eye's house. This is why this can be where fame can be, because it's where there's scrutiny, public scrutiny, because it's at a high stature of authority where it can affect a lot of individuals or affect a lot of people. So again, be mindful of how, you should think through your actions, think your actions through. This is why shadow work is always important, because you have to do the self work. Because there's times when things may happen that you're not going to be able to foresee. So these are times to learn how your actions have caused an effect on something. And this is times where you have to own up to your actions. So if you learn from these incidents, you'll be better able to plan your actions, at a later time. You'll be able to do things in a better way. This is why you study the works of others, to take from their experiences, to learn from their incidents, their situations as well. There's going to be some things outside of your ability to control, and you have to accept that when that is the case, because when you try to maneuver things that shouldn't be maneuvered, that's when you're going to fall into the darkness, because some things are beyond your control. and you fall deeper and deeper trying to control them. All right, so before you create your entity, there are some questions that you have to ask yourself. Just like before you start your business. When you're thinking about starting a business, you ask yourself why. You ask yourself, what problem can I solve? What's the target market for my business? How I'm going to fund my business? Right? So when you create a magical entity, you asking yourself, what is it that I want this entity to do? How is it going to accomplish this task? What variables do I need to factor in so my entity can be successful? Do I have a timetable? You know what I'm saying? How do I want this entity to appear? Is it worth it for me to do this, to even perform these tasks? These are important questions, because is it worth it to even do the spiritual work? Because are you trying to make a crutch out of a spiritual tool or abuse it? That's an important question. That's an important question that you have to ask yourself. So before you go further manifesting, there's a technique or a process or ritual for manifesting, a really simple one, right? So you just want to picture what you want in your mind's eye, exactly what it is that you want. You see your desire manifested. You want to see everything that would be affected by it. How would you feel? What problems would this solve for you? How would it make others feel? How will it make you feel? You envision it as real and as precise as possible. Think about the feelings you will have when it comes to pass. In that moment, think about what you'll feel. You want to crystallize it, which is like make it as real as much as possible. Write it down in detail. Write the results that you will achieve, your emotions, your feelings. Capture the essence of what this is going to bring. Like, think about you can feel the sun hitting your face, when you looking out the window. Just be as specific as possible. This is how you create your blueprint. So when you speak of terms of where you're going, where you see yourself from your mind's eye, that's speaking it into existence. So you have to plan, you structure a foundation, and it's not just to be talking, So there's a formula and there's a format to success. It's your job to figure out that formula, which is, what we discussing somewhat. Now, of course, you have a goal in mind for what you want, right? After defining your goal, you want to define the purpose, right? After you define your goal and define the purpose of it, you define the realm of influence, the the specific area of influence that your entity gonna operate, that your business gonna operate in. Like you creating, let's say you need a lump sum in a specific realm of influence. You know what I'm saying? Let's say you do real estate. You need a big sale. You develop entity statement of intent. It's the core DNA of the entity. It's like the mission statement of your business. That's what it is. The statement of intent. That's your mission statement. So based on your statement of intent, you get the name. Your name comes out of what you're doing. That's why people create a business or whatever around something related to what they're doing. Sometimes it has spelling in it. It's dealt in the logo. That's when you're thinking about the appearance of it. This plays a role in the task of the entity based on the task sometimes. So when you create an entity, if you wanted to do a specific thing, then you want it to look a certain way to be able to do that specific thing. That's incorporating the appearance of it. Brother Panic broke that down as the way a child creates an imaginary friend. It's like the same thing, or just like when they play with their favorite toy, when they make it an entity. Remember, be ye like children. It's referencing the imagination. It requires your imagination. It's almost delusional to an extent. That's the imagination. That's why you can't go talking to any and everybody about how far you do your spiritual workings, because they could look at you like you crazy. It's the same type of energy. Same type of energy. You know what I'm saying? But that's the power of your mind when you know the capacity of what you can do. Neo said, he asked Morpheus, he said, you saying I can stop bullets? He said, no. He said, you saying I can dodge bullets? He said, no, I'm saying when you ready, you ain't gonna have to. Because he knew he could just stop the bullets. The imagery of how you see your entity is going to be helpful. This is why Catholics pray to the saints. That's why they had the statues. That's why they had the altars. Because you need imagery. The imagery plays a factor. So you treat these containers, right, or these holders, right, as means of housing that energy. So it's not worshiping. That's why people think it's worship, because it's what they do when they be praying to Jesus. That's why they think you worshiping your crystals, because they don't understand that you understand that crystal is housing an energy, that you charged it and it's housing an energy. And you are connecting to that energy the same way they connecting to that Jesus they praying to on that wall. See, that's why in their mind they think that you worshiping. They don't get it. See, you've come to the understanding that you worshiping yourself. If there's any worship, it's worship to self. We just understand it's being reflected back to us. These is extensions of us. We just plugging into the source. See, energy of some form of another has to be supplied to your entity, just like funds got to be put towards your business. You know, money, finance, and time. Those things have to be put towards, that's currency, that's energy, has to be supplied to the entity. So every time you be, thinking on them stressful thoughts, you feeding that entity that feed off of them stressful thoughts, because it's housing that energy. It's crystallized into a physical form, into some type of dis-ease in your body now. Right? So when you create an entity, you want to charge it, you want to give it energy in some form. It has to be supplied with energy in some form. It has to feed off energy, just like food and water. That's why people put out food at the altar for their ancestors. It's the essence of the food. It's the energy that they are feeding the entity through food. Because the ancestor is what is housing the energy. So they feeding it. They feeding it. So what does those entities source or feed that you pray to? Who created that entity of Jesus? Who is getting that energy? Who's Jesus in the flesh? Because that's where the energy goes. So when people say, oh, they feeding off your energy, they feeding off your trauma, there's entities that are created, that are in place, that feed from your trauma, that feed from your fears. You're feeding the opposition when they pull your emotional strings. And some of it is physical. Some of it is in your physical life. So your entity feeds off energy, just like we do. Just like we feed off food and water. Just like we eat an apple, we receive energy from that apple. So it can be from your personal energy that feeds that entity. You could be the sole source, just like a sole proprietor business. So if you die, the entity die. If you die, the business die. Right? In that sense, you talk to it daily, you feed it, etc. You build a relationship with it. But you can also have an external source as well. So you can have a soul, you can connect with it and be a source of energy for it. But you can also have an external source. You can have an external source. Like with ancestors, it can be food. Like it can be incense. Like it can be certain herbs. This is how you build a connection between you and your entity. And at the same time, this is how you direct your personal attention and energy to it, that which it can feed. When you talk to it daily, when you feed it in whatever way, whatever energy. Now, of course, the entity not going to eat the physical food, right? It just, like I said, feeds off the essence of the food. This is a sign of affection. Remember, love transmutes everywhere, everything in all parts of the universe. Love is key. So that's a form of affection. So you can also meditate on the image of the entity and visualize energy streaming to that entity, flowing into that entity. That's what people do sometimes in terms of guardian angel. That's why, like, if you look at some of the doctor shows, when they say they see things spiritually, they say something is wrong with their brain. Say go back to the mind. But any attention that you give to an entity serves as energy feeding. So when you get energy flows where attention goes. So when you give things attention, you giving it energy. You feeding it. So when you give dysfunctional things attention, you feeding whatever is the source of that's feeding off that dysfunction. That's why you shouldn't share things that don't feed you, that don't inspire you. If you don't like it, don't pay it no mind. Don't pay it no mind. Feed the things that you love. Now you create a hybrid system of feeding your entity, right? And make it so that it has a constant source of energy that's external to you. But when you feed it energy through whatever means, it receives an energy boost. So that energy boost can be used to help you or whatever you created it to do. It gives a boost. So it does it much more efficiently. It's just like when you put more money if you get a loan to put $50,000 into your business, it's going to get a boost. It's going to get a boost because you're going to be able to do more things with that money. Hopefully you can do something to flip that and bring in more money. And maybe that's investing in something that you need that will help you make more money in some other way. Or I don't know, maybe you do events. Maybe you can do an event and flip it, and who knows, whatever it is, but it's a boost. So also, when you specify a secondary form of energy external to you, you ensure that the entity's existence during those times that you do not actively need its services. So also, if you have other people, you hire people to assist you in your business, that's an external source. If you have a partnership, if you create a partnership, you want to go in a partner with somebody to cover when you're not there, somebody to give it what you can't give it, or to give it what you don't have to give it, or to give it in addition to what you can give it, to help it with that boost. It's like eating out and knowing you can still eat at home when you have soul source and external source. So whatever energy source that you provide to your entity. So, whatever energy source that you provide to your entity, there's two things to keep in mind. The first is that you want to make sure that the source of the energy is harmonious with the task and the realm of influence of the entity. And the source of the energy is pleasing to you, because if it's not pleasing, or if it becomes a burden on you to provide it, your entity will suffer from it. All right, so you want to be harmonious with your work. When you get out of balance with your business, it's gonna suffer. It's not gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? If it becomes a burden. All right, so you want to make sure that what you're trying to do and what you're able to give it, and like everything aligns so that it can have a flow, because the business has to have a flow. Just like your entity has to constantly receive, it has to have a flow. It's just like feeding anything or nurturing anything, right? Now the second thing to remember is to make sure that you give your entity some form of energy, and that your entity knows where its next meal is coming from. So if you don't do this, right, you can create something that may never come into existence, right? Which is what happened for a lot of people. It never really comes into existence. Or The entity could become just a roaming entity like a vampire looking for energy wherever it finds it. And there was a episode of Supernatural where an entity was created from a story, and it basically just began to haunt, just kept haunting this house. But in a sense, it's just like anything, it's just like if you have a animal, like if you have a dog, you don't take care of it, it ends up going out, getting its next meal from somewhere else, end up finding whatever, end up maybe even harming somebody. You don't know. So there's a means of programming your intent. That's why you use symbols. The symbols allows you to communicate with your subconscious. So you formulate the symbols to represent the entity's realism. So that's whether it's general or specific, but the entity's realism of influence. So it's magical abilities, it's lifestyle statement, intent, specific task, all of that. So it's your logo, and your other symbols that you use in your business. So it's just like when you balancing your sheet, and you got your pluses, your positives, your pluses and your negatives. Those are symbols in terms of communicating what your business stands for, the value of your business. So the same thing for your entity, right? So when you create a symbol, when you create a sigil, different things like that, and check the resources in the book library for the resources that can give you more information in detail about some of these things. If you're interested in understanding it there, if you want to take it more in depth, if you want to know more about, sigils and symbolism and creating the entity, then the resources are there in the book library, so you can check that out. That's if you purchase this as the whole seminar mini course, or if you are part of the Patreon. So either or, it's gonna be there. If you have any questions on how to get it, shoot me an email and I'll let you know. So it's important, again, that I stress that you do the proper cleansing and balancing work prior to beginning to do any type of magical work. And you also want to physically clean whatever type of area that you're doing any type of spiritual work in. So, your spiritual tools, your spiritual area, your spiritual work, cleanse it all. So when you set up any type of altars, ancestral altars, this is the time, or this is, where you're giving the energy to these entities that assist you, that's represented in your ancestors. That's a means of depiction for you. You want to clear that space, keep it cleansed, you don't want just anybody in that space, just because energy, it's all about energy. So when you do all that, you deal with stating your intention, you energize and charge yourself, you charge your area, you charge your entity. That's just preparation in terms of your business. That's following your business plan. That's preparing yourself for the long haul in the process of your business in the next coming months and years and stages of your business. You know what I'm saying? So you want to visualize, meditate, visualize, have a healthy routine in everything that you're doing in terms of your magical spiritual work, in terms of your business working. It's the same thing. You know what I'm saying? There's a process. So success is what you define it as, but the point is the results. Whether you're doing spiritual work, whether you're doing physical, material work, it's really kind of all the same thing. So the basic outline of it all, you're defining your goals, you understand the purpose, creating the name, defining the appearance, housing it or containing it, determining the source of energy, defining the magical abilities. This is pretty much the creating of a magical entity. And also, what you have to do is you have to get creative, and you have to do creative writing. So it's best to write it out because of the magic in spelling it out yourself, right? But you can also type it out through speech to text or whatever. However you feel most comfortable getting it done, but the best results for it is to write it out. It's not about nobody judging your handwriting or anything like that, but it's for you. So um use your instincts and intuition whenever you take on the task of creating magical entities. If there's ever a time that, something just don't sit right with you, go with what your heart says to do. Because more often than not, your heart is gonna tell you what's for you. But in terms of that creative writing, you wanna write out a story. You wanna create a story for your entity, and this is the same thing that you do in your marketing plan for your business or your brand. You create a brand story. You tell a story of what got you here, your why, what are you contributing, what it is that you do, what are you providing. That's your brand story. That's what you market around. So in the same sense, that's what your entity is. That's the story. That's the origin point, the origin story of your entity. So when you do that, that is what helps solidify it. Like gives it the meat, the bones, the life. Gives the life to it. That's how it's the author. The pen is mightier than the sword. So you become the author of this story, and you create your own story. You're writing those that assist you in your story, assist you along your journey. And so in creating their story and creating the abilities, the attributes of your own entity, you pull from that energy in your time of need. That's what they did when they created deities, when they made religion. That's what they did. That's how they created those entities. So for Jesus, you have the cross, you have the symbology of the cross. You have the Bible, you have the story of everything that comes into fruition. You have the everything about it, and the hope, the love, the compassion, the empathy that's pulled from that deity. That's what it is. So if you have the power, the ability to pull from your own and what you can create, and some occultists went on and created it and made it for others to do. That's what Aleister Crowley did with the AWAS, or with what he called the ultimate will. But that's what you do. So it's like creating a power source, right? And you're the only one with the power to connect to that power source. But the trick is, or the key of it is, you're also the only one that can give it the energy that it needs to power you. So you have to create the means for that. You're the creator for that, though. So you can create the energy source. But, there's so much studying that you can do and further your knowledge in this area. But once you got an understanding of it, you see how the structure of it is in a multitude of places within society. We just never really noticed, So that pretty much concludes, and that breaks down the creating a business, creating a magical entity. So, drop any questions if you have any, and I will drop some resources or some references for you in the box as well. So peace.